Hello, everybody. Am I audible to you guys? Just let me know. Good morning, everybody. Okay. So I have seen Kanika and Pooja join after so many time. Okay. Yes, you are. Let's say I am audible, right? Okay. So are you able to see this newspaper? Okay. Chali. So we're gonna start the session for today. Okay. Let me before I start the session, I have a certain thing to say that yesterday there were certain students who had written certain comments like, okay, sir, you need to speak certainly more words in English. But I think that I speak more of the analysis in I take in English language only, right? And it are the certain subtle things that I talk in Hindi language, but most of our sessions are concentrated in only English language. If you see, let's say from the start till the end, my sessions will make you understand what I'm trying to convey, because then I try to make sure that I convey both the things in English as well as in Hindi, right? So from my point of view, I am trying to say that language for me is not a barrier. I can take the whole session in English, but there are certain students, there are certain audience that I have in front of me, that who speak only Hindi, understand only Hindi, who understand only English. So I cannot be, let's say, making a bias that I can only go for the English language or I can go for the Hindi language, right? So I have to make sure that I have to take a middle path, like the middle path that was taken by Buddha ji. Okay, so as a result, I have to take the middle path. What I can do from my side is I can take 70% of the class in English and 30% of my class in Hindi. I hope this is the thing that you would be able to understand, right? Okay, now let's begin the session for today. I think you can see over here there is a particular news that is related to Cabinet nod for 10,000 electric buses in 169 cities. Now, this is a very, very important thing. I think सबको ये चीज पता होनी चाहिए कि there have been certain schemes that were announced or that was presented by our Prime Minister in his Independence Day speech. One of the speech or the component of the speech was to expand the infrastructure, right? To expand the transport infrastructure. And in this particular regard, we have to understand one thing, that government has announced now setting up of PM e-bus Seva scheme, which is to be, let's say, at an estimated budget of 57,613 crore, and of which center will provide how much? 20,000 crore. So what they are trying to say over here is that they are coming with the e-bus Seva scheme, around which budget would be around 57,613 crore, and 20,000 crore would be, let's say, provided by the center. Now they are basically going towards this e-bus, or we can say electric buses. Now one thing you have to understand, that we have certain goals towards achieving our Paris Agreement. Like we have the goal of achieving net zero emissions by 2070, right? I think इसके बारे में सबको पता होगा that we have the goal of achieving net zero emissions by 2070. So in this particular regard, we have been taking certain steps where we are trying to reduce the carbon emissions. And in this particular aspect, this particular service scheme that has been started by India would help us a long way in achieving our net zero emissions, which is our goal, that is to be achieved by 2070. Now, one thing you have to understand, that when India declared its net zero emission goal by 2070, India also placed its long term low emission development strategy. This thing is very important. I'm writing the short form: long term low emission development strategy, where India tried to suggest that how it would be basically reducing the emissions in their country. So one of the steps that they tried to give was that they would be moving towards green hydrogen, they would be moving towards biofuels, they would be moving towards energy efficiency, they would be increasing the forest cover and tree cover. But one of the thing you have to understand, that this is also a part of the government, it's also a part of the strategy that this e-bus Seva scheme is trying to do. What it is trying to do, it is trying to make sure that it is helping us, the country, to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. So this thing is absolutely important that you guys have to understand. One more thing that you have to understand, that this particular model or this scheme would be operating on the basis of public private partnership. This is very important, that this point we have to understand, because I already told you that budget is around 57,000 crore, center would be providing 20,000 crore, then it would be upon the states and the private investors that they have to come up in this particular scheme, so that this particular e-bus seva scheme could be launched. And under this e-bus seva scheme, there would be addition of how many e-buses? 10,000 e-buses, right? So this is the thing that we have to understand. I hope this point makes sense. Whenever you are writing your answers, let's say related to net zero emissions, reducing climate change, reducing the emissions, reducing carbon emissions, then you can mention about this PM e-bus seva scheme. It is one of the most important component of achieving net zero emissions. And you cannot forget these points. These points are absolutely important. In no way that you can skip these points, because these are the examples that validate your answers. These are the examples that make your answer give you the value addition, and it takes you a one notch above the rest of the others. That is why we say now we have to read newspaper, because then it gives the edge to us as compared to other aspirants who are not regularly following the newspaper. But now you have got the clarity कि net zero emissions भाई हमारा target है. How we can achieve the target? That we can go for this e-bus seva schemes. Okay. Now, second article is very interesting. It is talking about Supreme Court unveils handbook to eliminate gender stereotypes from law. Now, one of the things that you guys need to understand, that when we talk about a lot of events, or we have to explain a situation in our country, we certainly use certain gender stereotypes like gold diggers, like we can say fallen woman, career woman, faithful, obedient wife, eve teasing. Are you getting one thing? That these are certain areas, or these are certain terminologies that we are not only using in our normal language or in, let's say, in our society, but this is the language that has been used in the courts as well, like career woman, fallen woman, faithful woman, obedient wife, eve teasing. But this type of basically is a type of gender stereotyping where we are subjugating a particular gender in our society. So in order to correct this, Supreme Court has unveiled a handbook. Then how we can eliminate these particular terminologies from the law? They are saying that instead of using these words, which I have tried to tell you, the words that could be used instead are woman, woman wife, street sexual harassment, and intersex. So this is one of the judicial reforms that is taking place within the judiciary, so that we are able to break this gender stereotypes. And it is very, very important to break this gender stereotypes if we want to make our society progressive, and if we want to achieve justice and equality for all the people. See, equality is not about giving the opportunities, but it is respecting and making sure that we are able to delete all the prejudiced opinions, stereotypes that have been created in the society, because then only we can start respecting the woman, then only we can talk about equality of the woman. As soon as you say faithful or obedient wife, that means you are doing what? You are basically putting the gender of wife and putting it in a lower strata as against the gender of a man or a husband. So these are the things that we need to understand, and it is a very, very progressive step that has been taken by whom? It has been taken by our Supreme Court, that they want to unveil a handbook so that they can eliminate gender stereotypes from law. I hope these two news are absolutely clear to you guys. One is related to judicial reforms. It is connected to your GS paper 2, and this is basically connected to your GS paper 3, because these type of questions come from economics and environment background. Right. Moving to the next part. So nothing important over here. Okay. So moving to the editorial page. Now this is a particular editorial that we need to understand. So we will talk about this as well a little bit, and we will talk about this as well. Let's talk about first of all this particular article, an act to cement digital authoritarianism. Now, I think everybody is able to understand what they are talking in context to. They are talking in context to this Personal Data Protection Act that has been now passed by our parliament, right? So this is a particular thing that is being talked in this particular editorial. Now, one thing we need to know, that if I can trace the genesis of this particular act, it could be traced to what? It could be traced to Putta Swami judgment that came in the year 2017. Very important. It is all related to Puttaswamy judgment that came in the year 2017. As you can see over here, I have highlighted it. What does Puttaswamy judgment had? Puttaswamy judgment said that right to privacy is a right to life. Very important. And right to life is a fundamental right under Article 21. So right to privacy is a fundamental right. So when we are basically, let's say, giving any data to a government or a private agency, we generally see that there are these particular entities that are accessing our data, storing our data, or even, let's say, transferring our data without our consent. So in that particular regard, it was felt by the Supreme Court that there needs to be protection of our privacy. So right to privacy is the right to life, and it has been mandated under what? Under Article 21. Now, in order to make sure that we get proper guidelines on this, there was a particular committee that was formed by the name of, let's say, the name of the committee, if I'm able to recall it, was B.N. Sri Krishna, right? So it was a committee that was basically formed in order to draft the guidelines for this digital personal data protection bill. Now, personal data protection bill had a lot of things that talks about that how they would be able to protect the data, right? So there are a lot of provisions that we have already discussed, that there would be right to consent. I think sabko pata hai that when you are basically giving any data, they ask your consent, right? Whether you give any data to Facebook, Instagram, Meta, Snapchat, they ask your consent, then only they are able to store it and process it. So in this particular regard, they are trying to say in this personal data protection bill that right to consent is very, very important under this particular act. Now, there are certain question marks over this particular act which has been highlighted in this particular editorial. कि कुछ पर्टिकुलर क्या है, अगर हम बात करें यहाँ पे कुछ क्वेश्चन मार्क्स हैं that have been highlighted in this particular editorial. Now what are the question marks that have been asked over here? One of the thing that has been asked over here is that yes, certain government entities, if we talk about, they are being said that they have to comply with the rules, but there are certain government entities who would be exempted from this particular act. So this is one of the drawback, that there would be certain government entities जिनके पास पावर होगी कि वो अपने आप को एग्जेम्प्ट कर सकते हैं. मतलब क्या है कि वो डेटा का किस मर्जी तरीके से प्रयोग कर सकते हैं. दे कैन यूज द डेटा वट एवर दे वॉन्ट to use, and they do not require even the consent of the people as well. So government says that they can and they want to process the data, and they would be exempted because they can do it for national security. They have to make certain policy. So this is the thing that has been stated by the government, that they are doing it basically because for the purpose of national security. So one of the thing is government entities would be exempted from this particular act. Second thing that we have to understand is, in this act there would be exemption of right to information. So I can say one thing, that right to information also gets diluted a lot, which is a very much, we can say, our public right, that we need to know that where our data is being used if it is used by government entities. So this is the second major problem with this particular act, that there is a provision of right to information. Now the third important thing that we need to understand is, there is a provision under this particular act with the creation of data protection board. Very important. एक क्या बनाया जाएगा? There would be creation of data protection board. But most of the people are saying, that are criticizing this particular act, that most of the members of this digital protection board or the data protection board would be from the central authorities. So there would be basically we having the major control of center over this data protection board and overall towards this particular act. So these are the three certain, we can say, major loopholes that have been highlighted with this particular act. So one of the thing is government entities are exempted, right to information has been diluted, and more powers have been given to this data protection board, which will comprise mostly of the central authorities. I hope this point is clear to everybody. हाँ जी, किसी कोई डाउट हो तो पूछ सकते हो. Is there any provision in this that method for local data will be in the domestic territory? See, first of all, you have to listen, Ashu Sharma. There is a provision that our data could be transferred to another country. So there is no need for data localization, but the data could be transferred only in one condition, if that country has also strict data protection laws, right? So in that case only data would be sent to that particular country. Okay, now moving to the next editorial. As you can see over here, they are talking here about the haphazard development is increasing the impact of weather events. See, one of the things that you have to understand, that one of the we can say hottest month that we had observed in the cold months was in the month of February. Because why? There was not enough, we can say, western disturbances that came in the month of winter season. But now what has happened in this particular season, what we are witnessing right now is, yes, we are saying that it is a time of El Nino, so there shall be a respite from the monsoon. Monsoon will not that be strong enough. But what we have seen is monsoon is strong, plus there is recurrence of western disturbances. These western disturbances that originate in the Mediterranean Sea, and they bring winter rainfall to northern India. ये विंटर सीजन में तो नहीं आई, बट इस बार अगर हम बात करें, वेस्टर्न डिस्टर्बेंसेस हैव बीन क्लब्ड विद दिस मॉनसून एंड इट हैज क्रिएटेड हैवक in the parts of northern India, especially if we talk about Himachal and Uttarakhand. And what we are witnessing in Himachal and Uttarakhand, that is unprecedented. What we are witnessing over there, you are seeing the major landslides, roads are being diluted, roads are being washed away, everything is being, let's say, any disaster that we can thought of is coming in the land of Himachal and Uttarakhand. So one of the thing that comes to our question that is the development that is taking place in this particular region of Himachal and Uttarakhand, is it sustainable? Is it working in a sustainable manner? Because one thing you need to understand, that let's say this is a particular area. I will try to make you understand with the help of figure. Let's say this was an area that was covered with forest, right? Covered with forest or trees. But for the sake of development, you cut these forests and trees. Now, one thing you have to understand, that forest has a greater binding property to hold the soil and to keep in intact the soil. But as soon as you take on the development without taking care of the environment and biodiversity, that haphazard development is basically causing this particular problem, that is resulting in increasing in landslides and the resultant disasters that what we are witnessing. Many people have lost their lives, many people have lost their property. Himachal and Uttarakhand have seen a loss of lives as well as a lot of economic loss as well, that would be very much difficult to, let's say, compensate in the upcoming future. So the question over here is, yes, the events are uncertain, climate change is happening, events are getting uncertain day by day. What we used to witness Mediterranean, let's say, disturbances or the western disturbances coming in the winter season, has now come in the season of monsoon. But we have to be prepared for this because climate change is certain. So in this particular regard, what we have seen over here is that because of our haphazard development, because of our unsustainable development, because of the development that we carry on without taking into care the carrying capacity, very important. This terminology is very important, that we guys need to understand, that we need to know that what amount of resources we need to use, because the resources are limited and we could have a certain number of population that we can make sure exist or live in a sustainable manner in a particular time scale. So is this the development that we are looking forward to? What we are right now witnessing, it is not acceptable, right? So we have to do a lot, and we have to make sure that impact of weather events would be there, but if the development is right, we can reduce the impact. I hope this point is clear to everybody. Okay. Now, one of the things that you need to understand, that along with various schemes that were announced by our Prime Minister, one of the scheme that was announced by our Prime Minister was, in along with already going Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, he announced a scheme that would be implemented for creation of urban houses. Now, when this scheme is going to come, we do not know, but there was announcement that there would be a new scheme coming for the construction of urban houses. Now, one of the things that you need to understand about this Pradhan Mantri Yojana Urban, it was launched in 2015 with a focus on housing for all. That was to achieved by 2022. But yes, we haven't achieved by 2022, and we might be able to achieve it by 2024. Now, in this particular regard, we have to understand one thing, that in the last 8 years since the launch of this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, only two-thirds of the sanctioned houses, or 76.25 lakh houses out of about 1.9 crore sanctioned, were either completed or handed over. The central assistance has been 1.49 lakh crore. The center share has been limited to 24.4%, while that of states and urban bodies is 16%. The remainder, almost 60%, has to come from beneficiaries. Now, one of the things that we have to understand is that in the ongoing Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, center share is 24.4%. When we talk about the share of the states and the urban bodies, it is 16%. Remainder of the almost 60% come from the beneficiaries. Now, under the proposed scheme, the share of the beneficiaries shall be brought down to at least 40%. Now, this is the thing that has been highlighted over here. The new yojana that is going to come, that is basically creation of urban houses, would be basically related to what? Related to giving urban houses to the people who are living in slums, who are not living in proper locations, in order to make sure that they have the proper facilities, they are not dying of any waterborne diseases, they are not dying of malaria, they are not dying due to dengue, they are having a proper sewage facilities, they are getting the proper water facilities, they are proper getting the electricity connection. How can we do that? If we have proper housing infrastructure. How they can provide a housing infrastructure? They have already ongoing scheme by the name of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, but that has not been able to complete the housing for all, because 60% of the funds has to come from the beneficiaries. So what this new scheme can do, if we want to achieve the housing for all, is to make sure that each and every person is basically contributing to the tune of almost about how many? 40%. And I think this point is absolutely clear to everybody, that why there is a need for creation of urban houses, to reduce waterborne diseases, to reduce the malaria like incidents, and to create sewage water facilities. Right, guys? Okay. Now, this is a particular bill. This is related to, we can say, reform of our criminal laws. But one thing you need to know, that this has been sent to a parliamentary committee for its, let's say, consultation. It will make certain recommendations, then it will be introduced as a bill. But for now on, we need not to go into it. One of the things that we need to understand is why there has been a thought that we need to change this particular criminal procedure code or IPC and Indian Evidence Act, because they have a colonial legacy. They have been certain laws which have become outdated, and there was a need that we need to reform them. So as a result, there has been a introduction of these three new bills. Right, guys? Chali. Now moving to the next part. Nothing important over here. Okay. Now this thing is not very important, but just try to listen one or two things that I want to talk about in this particular text page. In June, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change issued a notification quietly backing on its own move to establish integrated regional office by merging the office of FCI, NTCA, WCCB and CZA. Now, there was a proposal that they wanted to integrate the offices of Forest Survey of India, National Tiger Conservation Authority, Wildlife Crime Control Bureau and Central Zoo Authority. Now, I will not be going into the details because it is not that much important. What is important is that you have to understand what is the purpose of FCI. Can anyone tell me the purpose of FCI, Forest Survey of India? In the comment box, quickly. Is there any purpose of Forest Survey of India? Okay, I would tell you guys, Forest Survey of India is that particular organization that comes under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and it is the one that is basically responsible for calculating Indian State of Forest Report. Very good, Pooja. Basically, it talks about our forest cover and tree cover, our mangrove cover, our carbon stock, forest fire incident. All of this is being mentioned in a report by the name of Indian State of Forest Report, released by Forest Survey of India, and it is being published after every 2 years. So this is the thing that we need to understand. Now, the second organization that they have tried to mention over here is NTCA, that is National Tiger Conservation Authority. Now, it is the nodal agency for the protection and conservation of tigers in the country. If you have to let's make sure कि boundary change करनी है tiger reserve की, it could only be done on the recommendation of what? On the recommendation of National Tiger Conservation Authority. So this thing is very important. Then we have Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. अच्छा, एक चीज और, these have been under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. This is also under Wildlife Protection Act 1972, that is Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, and Central Zoo Authority is also under Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So these are the three things that we need to understand. Now, Wildlife Crime Control Bureau is basically a bureau headquartered in Delhi, whose main focus is to track down the organized wildlife crime nexus that is being there, which is being operated, and to hunt down that particular nexus which are dealing in the wildlife trade. So this is for purpose Wildlife Crime Control Bureau was formed. Then we have the Central Zoo Authority. I think it is very, very simple. It was formed in 1982 for the regulation of zoos all over the country. And Wildlife Crime Control Bureau was formed in the year 2006, and NTCA was formed in the year 2005. So you need to know the hierarchy as well. Central Zoo Authority was formed in the year 1982. WCCB was formed in the year 2006, and NTCA was formed in the year 2005 following the recommendation of Tiger Task Force. So these are the four things that you need to understand. These are the four organizations that are very, very important. Okay. Now moving to the next part, nothing important over here. Now these are Odisha government ने वो controversial deemed forest order withdraw कर लिया, that we discussed yesterday. Okay, now this scheme is very interesting. I think you could see over here. Vishkarma scheme will aid 30 lakh artisan families. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approves the scheme with an outlay of 13,000 crore. It was announced by Pradhan Mantri in his Independence Day speech. Will give craft persons credit support. Now, this particular scheme is related for the traditional craftspeople and artisans, and this will be from the time period from 2023 to 2027. And this is basically to strengthen and nurture the Guru Shishya Parampara, or the family-based practice of traditional skills by artisans and craftsmen, people working with their hands and tools. This also improves the quality as well the reach of the products and the services of the craftspeople, and to ensure that the Vishkarmas are integrated with the domestic and the global value chains. Artisans and craftsmen will get this particular certificate and ID card and the credit support to 1 lakh in the first tranche, and the second at a concession interest rate of 5%. Also, there would be two types of skilling programs, basic and advanced, under which there would be a stipend of 500 per day will be provided to the beneficiaries while undergoing skill training. He said that 30 lakh families will be covered over the 5 years of the scheme. So there are certain things that we need to understand related to this, that this is a particularly scheme for making sure that we promote the work of artisans. So as a result, they would be provided the credit support. As you can see over here, initially पहले 1 लाख मिल सकती है, फिर 2 लाख भी मिल सकती है, और इंटरेस्ट रेट बड़ा कम रहेगा. अगर कोई इनके रिलेटेड ट्रेनिंग भी करना चाहता है तो वो भी कर सकता है, एंड दे विल बी गिवन द स्टाइपेंड ऑफ 500 per day. And in order to make sure that this would be basically working on the principles of Guru Shishya Parampara. I hope this point is clear to everybody. And along with this, there were certain projects that were announced by our Prime Minister, that were certain connectivity projects, and that is basically related to expansion of Digital India program. Okay, I hope these points are clear to everybody. I think nothing more important over here. And then we have the world page. चलिए, यहाँ पे भी कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. अच्छा, एक चीज इंपॉर्टेंट है, यहाँ पे आप पढ़ लेना, बस ये न्यूज पता होनी चाहिए. टेक्सटाइल एक्सपोर्ट्स हमारे कंटिन्यू हो रहे हैं, दे आर कंटिन्यू टू डिक्लाइन, राइट. नथिंग इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड फाइनली वी हैव वन साइंस पेज पे एक. Okay. Now they have talked about over here Lake Titicaca. So that is basically in the region of Andes. You just need to make sure that you know the location of Lake Titicaca and which countries it touches upon. Let me see if you can see it from the Google. Let me type in the Google and see where is this Lake Titicaca and make it show to you guys, right? Okay, we can see it in the maps. I think we need to go through the images, right? Okay, I think you could see over here. This is the map of what we have the Lake Titicaca. I think you can see over here that there is a country of Bolivia, there is Peru, right? We are not getting the right map. So let me see if I can find the right map. Okay, so here we have a little bit about an idea. So this is Lake Titicaca. It is between the borders of Peru and Bolivia. That has been shown over here. Right, guys? So you need to know the location of this Lake Titicaca, and it is basically in this area of Andes mountain range. Okay, guys. I hope this point is clear to everybody. Right, guys? And we are done with our today's analysis. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Otherwise, I'm going to end the session. Thank you so much. Hanji. So this today's newspaper was very important. There were very important news we had in the front page. Then we had very important news in the editorial page. Then we had good news in the news page as well, right? So these were the important news, and you need to know about the location of Lake Titicaca. Chaliye, thank you so much, guys. Take care and have a very good day. I have asked, say, upper side. I have given your answers. The new provision from are under India's criminal justice laws. Ashu Sharma, yes, there have been certain things, but there have been certain changes that they are trying to make, right? So we will try to study this bill when it comes out in detail. Okay. Srishti Array. Srishti Array, what do you want to ask in personal data? Let me be more specific, then only I can answer you, right? Okay. Acha, personal data is any basically that is related to your information that you are being portraying. Let's say what you have done in your qualification, like when you open a Geo app, they ask your data, right? कि तुमने क्या पढ़ा है, 10वीं में क्या पढ़ा है, 12वीं तक क्या पढ़ा है. These are the type of data that they're being trying to ask that is related to your personal information. Okay. Anything else you want to ask me about? Your biometric data, it could be a part of personal data. Okay. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Take care, and I will see you tomorrow, same time, 9 a.m. Till then, take care. Bye bye.